My name is David Martinez and I live in Tampa, Florida. What I'm about to tell you happened 3 years ago when I was 54 years old. It was the most intense experience of my life, literally a matter of life and death. I've been working as a software engineer for over 20 years. I started at small companies in Miami, then moved on to some tech giants in Silicon Valley. I've always been obsessed with solving complex problems, finding elegant solutions to systems that seemed impossible to fix. I've been married to Elena for 16 years. This is my second marriage. The first one only lasted 3 years. I was young, a workaholic, and simply didn't know how to be a good husband. Amanda, my first wife, was an incredible person, but I was more interested in code than relationships. Today we're friends, especially because we need to work together because of our daughter Jessica, who has autism and needs special care. Elena and I met when she was going through a very difficult time. She had lost her husband in a motorcycle accident and was raising 2 young children on her own. When we got married, we formed a blended family that, despite the challenges, works very well. In 2021, I started having health problems that seemed simple at first. I had a constant pain in the right side of my abdomen that doctors initially diagnosed as gallstones. I had some consultations, took medications, but the pain wouldn't go away. In fact, it was getting worse. For months, doctors insisted it was a digestive problem. I changed my diet, took antibiotics, had tests that always came back normal or inconclusive, but I knew something was very wrong. The pain was spreading, and I was losing weight rapidly. Finally, in September 2021, the pain became unbearable. Elena took me to Tampa General Hospital on a Tuesday morning. I could barely stand up. In the emergency room, they ran new tests and discovered what the other doctors had missed. I had a severe abdominal infection that had spread to my bloodstream. The diagnosis was sepsis, a potentially fatal condition where the body overreacts to an infection, attacking its own organs. The emergency room doctor, Dr. Rodriguez, explained to me that if we had waited a few more hours, I probably wouldn't have survived. They immediately admitted me to the ICU and started aggressive treatment with intravenous antibiotics. For 2 days, it seemed like the treatment was working. My temperature went down and I was able to talk normally with Elena and the kids. But on Thursday night, my condition deteriorated rapidly. My blood pressure plummeted, my kidneys began to fail, and my heart was working overtime to compensate. Around 2 in the morning on Friday, I went into septic shock. That's when what changed my life forever happened. I clearly remember the moment when everything changed. I was lying in the ICU bed, Elena was holding my hand, and suddenly I felt like I was being sucked out of my body. It wasn't gradual, it was instantaneous. In a split second, I was floating above the bed, looking down and seeing my own body. Elena was crying, clutching the hand of a body that looked like an empty shell. The machines were making alarming noises and nurses rushed into the room. I saw Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Patel, my cardiologist, come running in. They began resuscitation procedures. I could see everything with incredible clarity, as if I were watching a high-definition movie. But the strange thing was that I didn't feel panic or fear. I felt a deep calm. Then something even more extraordinary happened. I began to move away from that scene as if I were being gently pulled by an invisible force. The ICU disappeared, the hospital disappeared, and I found myself in a completely different place. *** first experience. The dream office *** the first place I found myself seemed like a tech office, but unlike any office I had ever seen. The walls were made of a material that looked like glass, but transmitted a soft, golden light. There were computers, but they worked differently. They responded directly to my thoughts. I was sitting at a work desk, but it wasn't exactly me. It was an improved version of myself, more confident, more focused, with a mental clarity I had never experienced in real life. I was working on software projects, but not for companies or clients. I was creating programs that solve fundamental human problems. I developed a system that could translate not just languages, but also emotions and intentions, allowing people from completely different cultures to communicate in a deep and true way. I created another program that helped people with depression by identifying subtle patterns in their digital behavior and suggesting interventions before they reached the point of crisis. The most impressive thing was that I wasn't working alone. There were other people in that office, programmers, designers, engineers, who were also creating solutions to make the world better. There was no competition, no stressful deadlines, no corporate politics. Everyone was there for the same reason, to use their talents to help humanity. I had long conversations with a woman named Sarah who was developing an AI system that could detect diseases through voice analysis. She explained to me that she had died of cancer at 35, but that her work on that plane was helping doctors on Earth save lives. I worked in that office for what felt like months. I completed projects, collaborated with other brilliant minds, and felt a professional satisfaction I had never experienced. There was no pressure for financial results, just the pure pleasure of creating something meaningful. Second experience. The review room without warning. I found myself in a completely different room. It was like a private library with huge shelves full of books, but there were also screens showing scenes from my life as if they were movies. I wasn't alone. There was a presence with me. I can't say it was a specific person, but I felt like it was someone who knew me deeply and loved me unconditionally. This presence guided me through a review of my life, but it wasn't a judgment. It was more like a mentoring session. We saw moments where I had been selfish, especially during my first marriage. I saw how my obsession with work had hurt Amanda, how I had missed important opportunities to be present for Jessica when she was little and struggling with her difficulties. But we also saw moments of kindness that I had forgotten. Once, when I was working in San Francisco, I spent hours helping an elderly man who had lost all his family photos when his computer crashed. I didn't charge him anything and even bought him a new hard drive. I saw how that gesture had meant much more to him than I had imagined at the time. The presence showed me how small acts of kindness created waves of positivity that spread far beyond what I could see. A program I had developed for free for a school in Miami had helped hundreds of children learn math more effectively. Some of these children grew up to become engineers, teachers, doctors. More importantly, I saw how my relationship with Elena had transformed me into a better person. Meeting her not only taught me about love, but about responsibility, patience, and the importance of being present for the people we love. Third experience. The hospital of the future the third experience was the most intense. I found myself working as a doctor in a hospital that seemed to be from the future. I had medical knowledge that I never possessed in real life, but it was as if I had always known these things. The hospital had incredible technology. There were machines that could diagnose diseases instantly just by scanning patients. Mind-controlled surgical equipment that allowed for impossibly precise operations. But the most impressive thing was that I could feel exactly what each patient was feeling, not just physically, but emotionally. I worked with a team of doctors treating people with conditions that seemed impossible to cure. A child with cerebral palsy whom we managed to help walk using a combination of advanced surgery and neural stimulation. A man with Alzheimer's for whom we developed a treatment that restored his memories. But it wasn't just about technology. There was a spiritual dimension to the work. Every healing involved not just treating the body, but also helping the person find inner peace and purpose. It was as if illness was just a symptom of a deeper imbalance that needed to be addressed holistically. I specifically remember a woman who came to the hospital dying of cancer. We worked to treat the disease, but I also spent hours talking with her about her fears, her regrets, her hopes. When she was finally cured, it wasn't just because we removed the tumor, but because she found peace with her life and reasons to live. Throughout this time, I was wearing white clothing that seemed to float around my body. I was taller and stronger than in real life, and my hands had an almost supernatural ability to heal. But the most important thing was the sense of purpose. Every day in that hospital felt like I was doing exactly what I should be doing. Fourth experience. The command center the last experience was the most surreal. I found myself in something that looked like a sci-fi movie command center. There were huge screens showing events happening around the world, and I was coordinating rescue teams in emergency situations. It wasn't just about natural disasters, although there was that too. I was helping coordinate rescues during an earthquake in Mexico, organizing supply distribution during floods in Louisiana, and directing search and rescue operations after a plane crash in Germany. But the most impressive thing was that I was also working on personal crises. There were screens showing people in moments of despair, someone contemplating suicide in Seattle, a family lost during a blizzard in Colorado, a missing child in Atlanta. I was coordinating teams of people, some who seemed to be on Earth, others who were clearly on the same plane where I found myself, to help in these situations. Sometimes it was a matter of sending the right person to the right place at the right time. Other times it was about inspiring someone with an idea or feeling that would lead them to act. I saw how each action we coordinated created a chain of positive events. The man in Seattle we saved from suicide ended up becoming a counselor who helped hundreds of other people. The family lost in the blizzard was rescued by a team that, inspired by that experience, specialized in mountain rescues and saved many other lives. The most fascinating thing was seeing how everything was connected. The people I had helped in the future hospital sometimes appeared on the screens as people who were now helping others. The software I developed in the Dream Office was being used by rescue teams to coordinate their operations. Throughout this experience, part of me knew I needed to go back. There was a soft but persistent voice reminding me that Alina was waiting, that the children needed me, that my work on Earth wasn't finished. The transition back was gradual. First, the experiences began to blend together. I was in the command center, but I could also see the hospital where my body was. I saw Elena holding my hand, the doctors working frantically to keep me alive. Then I began to feel gentle tugs bringing me back. It was as if I were being gently wrapped in a blanket and carried home. The four experiences began to fade, but not abruptly. It was as if I were storing precious memories before leaving. The moment of return was intense. I felt like I was being compressed, forced back into a very small space after having been in an infinite universe. I opened my eyes and saw Elena's face, tears streaming down her cheeks. David? David, can you hear me? Dr. Rodriguez was checking my pupils with a flashlight. Welcome back. Later I learned that I had been clinically dead for 47 minutes. My heart had stopped 3 times, and they had used defibrillation, medications, and even an extracorporeal circulation machine to keep me alive. Dr. Rodriguez told me it was one of the most difficult cases of his career. It shouldn't have worked, he admitted weeks later. After 20 minutes without adequate brain oxygenation, there's usually permanent damage. You were out for more than twice that long. It's a medical miracle. The experience changed me in ways I'm still discovering. The most obvious was my perspective on death. Before, I had a terrible fear of dying. Now I have no fear at all. I know that consciousness continues, that there is purpose beyond this life, that death is just a transition. Professionally, I also completely changed my approach. Before, I was focused on maximizing profits and building my career. Now, I look for projects that really make a difference. I work mainly with nonprofit organizations, developing systems that help people in need. For example, I created an app for veterans with PTSD that connects them with mental health resources and other veterans who have been through similar experiences. I also developed a system for food banks that optimizes donation distribution, reducing waste, and ensuring more people receive help. My relationship with Elena deepened extraordinarily. I have much more patience, much more presence. Before, even when I was physically at home, my mind was always at work. Now, when I'm with my family, I'm really there. With Jessica, my daughter with autism, I developed a much stronger connection. I began to understand that her communication difficulties don't mean she doesn't have profound things to share. I began dedicating more time to learning her unique ways of expressing herself. I was always agnostic, more interested in science than spirituality. The experience didn't convert me to any specific religion, but it gave me a deep certainty that there is something greater than ourselves. I began meditating regularly, not in a religious way, but as a way to connect with that deep peace I felt during the experience. I also began reading about different spiritual traditions, looking for common ground instead of differences. Elena, who has always been a practicing Catholic, said she sees me as more spiritual now, but in a way that isn't limited by dogmas. You found your own connection with the divine, she told me. Not everyone believed my experience. Some work colleagues thought it was just hallucination caused by lack of oxygen to the brain. Some doctors suggested it was an effect of the medications I received during resuscitation. I understand the skepticism. If someone had told me a story like this before my own experience, I probably would have been skeptical too. But for me, the reality of those 47 minutes is clearer than any other memory I have. What convinces me it wasn't just hallucination is the consistency and lasting impact. They weren't random or confusing images like usually happens with hallucinations. They were coherent and transformative experiences that continue to influence my life 3 years later. Additionally, some things I learned during the experience proved to be correct. The emotional translation system I developed in the dream office. I started working on something similar when I came back, and it's working better than I expected. Some of the medical techniques I saw in the future hospital. I researched them afterward and discovered they are real technologies being developed. The biggest lesson was about purpose. All my life I thought success meant money, status, professional recognition. The experience showed me that true success is about contribution, how we use our talents to make the world a little better. I learned that every small act of kindness has consequences that spread far beyond what we can see. The time we spend with people we love isn't lost productivity time. It's the most important thing we do. I also learned about interconnection. We're all much more connected than we realize. Our actions affect other people in ways we never imagined. Our thoughts and intentions have real power in the world. Today, 3 years later, I live very differently. I work fewer hours, but I feel like I contribute more. I spend more time with Elena and the children. I volunteer at a local hospital, helping families going through medical crises. I no longer have nightmares about death or illness. When Elena or the children get sick, I obviously worry, but I don't feel that existential terror I used to feel. I know that regardless of what happens, there is continuity beyond this life. Physically, I've recovered completely. The doctors said there shouldn't be any after effects from the sepsis or the 47 minutes without adequate oxygenation. But tests show my brain functions normally. If anything, I feel like I have more energy and mental clarity than before. For those going through difficult times, I want to share some things I learned. First, you are much more resilient than you imagine. During my experience, I saw how human beings are capable of overcoming incredible challenges when they find purpose and support. Second, nothing we do out of love is wasted. Every moment of kindness, every gesture of care, every time we choose to help instead of ignore, all of this has a real and lasting impact. Third, death is not the end. I know this may sound like empty comfort to those who have lost someone dear, but I can say with certainty that consciousness continues. The people we love don't disappear, they just transition to a different state of existence. When I look back, I see my life divided into two periods, before and after those 47 minutes. It wasn't just a spiritual experience. It was a complete rebirth. I'm still a software engineer. I still solve complex technical problems. I still love Elena and our children. But now I do all of this with a completely different perspective on what really matters. Sometimes people ask me if I would like to return to those planes I visited during my clinical death. The answer is that part of me will always be there. The lessons I learned, the peace I felt, the purpose I discovered, all of that came back with me to this life. My experience taught me that we don't need to die to access our true nature and purpose. We can choose to live with love, compassion, and dedication to the greater good at any time. Clinical death just showed me clearly what was already available if I chose to see it. Today, 3 years later, I wake up every morning grateful to be alive, but without fear of dying. I work every day knowing I have something unique to contribute. I love my family knowing our bonds are deeper and more lasting than anything physical death could touch. Those 47 minutes gave me a lifetime of perspective, and that's a gift for which I will be eternally grateful.